In almost every area of human creativity, rather than starting with a blank canvas, we start at the very least with influences, responding to the things that inspire us. In just about every area of music, for instance, borrowing is a part of the tradition. The influences of Mozart and Bach on Beethoven are well known, for instance, and almost every composition for which John Coltrane is famous is a reharmonization of an earlier jazz composition. The histories of painting, sculpture, literature and drama are similar, and vernacular cultures even more so. We human beings are all involved in one way or another in a great cultural conversation in which we listen to what others have said in the form of some creative endeavour, and then may want to respond. As the old saying goes, good artists borrow, great artists steal. United States law professor and reformer Lawrence Lessig, who I referred to earlier, has called this read-write culture. This is borrowing from a technical nomenclature of data storage, but is true in a broader sense. We all read, we all write. This is contrasted with read-only culture. In the 20th century, creativity became concentrated in the hands of a very few, who got very rich producing culture for the rest of us to consume, and used this wealth and influence to strengthen the laws of copyright that protected their endeavours. As we've seen, in the mid-90s, the World Wide Web came along and that tight grip started to be loosened. Around about 2004, the growth of what we now call Web 2.0, the shift towards an internet in which the majority of the content came from other users, further fueled the rebirth of the read-write culture. Today's internet, encouraged especially by the social media timelines of platforms such as Facebook and Twitter, for example, is home to a constant frenzy of reworking, borrowing and remixing. To view the output of others for free at a time of our own choosing is no longer enough. We now demand that we be able to respond, often incorporating the work to which we're responding. Much of this internet culture starts with the same basic premise as the piracy I talked about earlier, a sense of entitlement to the creativity of others and a rejection of the idea that once a computer or mobile phone has been purchased and an internet connection procured, there should be any further cost to access the work of others. The difference is that instead of simply consuming the work passively, as in listening to a pirated album, new creativity is being applied. For example, an old and copyrighted song may be set to a new visual track, or old copyrighted photos might be reworked into material to advocate for a new cause, both cases creating a copyright violation. Another tricky aspect of this type of copyright violation is that while the original works may have been produced as somebody's livelihood and thus for money, the new works being created may well not be. So the primary justification for all so-called intellectual property, which is preventing others from deriving economic benefit from the work of others or reaping where they haven't sown, doesn't really fit. In the moment, people simply need cultural material to incorporate into whatever they're creating and have no more sense that they're doing something wrong than they have expectation of any intellectual property claim to what it is they're producing. The point, in effect, ceases to be about who owns the material, but simply that it's seen and fulfills its communicative and referential function.